So Alabama taking on Kansas State in the Sugar Bowl has all the makings for an exciting bowl game. And today we need to break it down because these are two teams that look to make a statement. Kansas State feels disrespected as the collective college football world is picking Alabama to win this game. The Alabama Crimson Tide feel like if they would have played up to their capabilities during the regular season, they would be in the college football playoff. So they're trying to make a statement as to who they are as a team. And because of that, this is a game we have got to break down. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe this will be an exciting Sugar Bowl matchup? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions are massive. And we're trying to see how close we could get to 20,000 subscribers before the new year. We are so close to 17,000. And I would love nothing more than to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And I think this is going to be a really intriguing matchup. When we look at it, Kansas State's a very disciplined team. Whenever Adrian Martinez went down, I think there were a lot of people around college football that doubted what this team would be able to do, and deservedly so when we look at what a positive effect Adrian Martinez had on that team. But Howard has came in here and played really high-level football, and this Kansas State team has just kept trucking. They're a very disciplined team, and they have a few different ways to affect a defense. When we look at the Alabama Crimson Tide, there is no questioning the amount of talent on this team. The biggest question we have for Alabama is, are you going to be playing yourself and the opponent? What I mean when I say that, if we take the Tennessee loss, for instance, Alabama lost that game in the very last second. Meanwhile, they had 17 penalties in that game. They were fighting themselves and the Tennessee Volunteers. It's going to be tough enough to beat a good Kansas State team, a good Tennessee team, a good college football team if you're just playing them. But if you're playing them and you're beating yourself, it's going to be even more difficult to win. So for Alabama, if you can just play the opponent, they like their chances to get out of this game successfully. So let's start breaking this down. And I'd like to start with the Kansas State offense against the Alabama defense, because I think this is where a lot of people are going to focus in, especially because of Deuce Vaughn. And whenever people are going to talk about Kansas State, he's going to get the lion's share of attention, and deservedly so. Look, Deuce Vaughn is a very, very talented running back. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's able to affect the game in the rush. He's able to affect the game in the pass. He is instrumental for this Kansas State offense. But because of the amount of pressure he puts on a defense, there are other names that have been very successful this season that you have got to know, such as Malik Knowles, who's amassed over 700 yards. Phillip Brooks, another wide receiver, has over 500 yards. Warner, another wide receiver, has over 400 yards, and both of their tight ends that they utilize are averaging over 14 yards per reception. So this is an offense that, because of the pressure Deuce Vaughn puts on defenses, they're able to get the ball to different playmakers and generate successful plays. If you're Alabama, you have got to make sure you know where Deuce Vaughn is, but you have to make sure you know where all the other pieces are. You cannot get so focused on Deuce Vaughn that they sneak someone right behind him and are able to really hurt your defense. That's what Kansas State's been able to do all year. They get teams sleep. They get teams so focused on Deuce Vaughn, and then they hit them somewhere else. And then by the time they hit them somewhere else, that team has started focusing elsewhere, and then the Deuce Vaughn show begins. So for Alabama, you have got to stay disciplined in this game. And I know that's a very simple thing to say whenever we're talking about college football, because in college football and football in general, discipline is the name of the game. But whenever you're playing a team such as Kansas State that's very disciplined themselves, you have got to take advantage of any mistake they make, and you cannot give them free opportunities, whether that's in penalties, whether that's in missed assignments. Alabama has got to be on their P's and Q's. The one thing Alabama has got to make sure they do: get Kansas State off the field on third down, because that's an area Kansas State has struggled. And if Alabama is able to capitalize on that struggle for Kansas State, they're going to like what they're able to generate. The one thing I'm really interested in seeing is how this Alabama pass rush is going to try and get after Howard. Kansas State has been pretty good at keeping their quarterback upright this season, only allowing 19 sacks. But this Alabama pass rush is without question the best pass rush Kansas State will have faced. Will Anderson playing in this game is absolutely massive for the Alabama Crimson Tide, as is Bryce Young playing in this game. and their effect cannot be understated. This would be a great time for Alabama to showcase why Alabama fans need to be so excited for the future, even outside of Will Anderson, and what better way to do that in a bowl game where so many people are going to be watching. I'm very interested to see how this Alabama pass rush is going to try and affect Will Howard, because like I said, Deuce Vaughn is going to get his. He is going to be a massive portion of this Kansas State offensive game plan. But you have got to make sure that the pieces outside of Deuce Vaughn do not beat you while you're giving so much attention to the very talented running back. And Deuce Vaughn really can do it all. So for Alabama, you have got to be very disciplined on defense. I think that's a long-winded way to say you have got to make sure there are no missed assignments, because this Kansas State offense is built to just take advantage of teams that have any sort of missed assignments because they're paying so much attention to that fantastic playmaker. But now let's flip the script, because Kansas State has an edge that you have got to be aware of. Uzuma. This guy has been a thorn in the side of the Big 12 for quite some time, and I'm really excited to watch him play in this Sugar Bowl. Alabama's offensive line is one that's been a work in progress, and I'm excited to see how they take on this challenge. Specifically, I want to see how this offense is going to try and keep themselves on the field while keeping Kansas State's offense off the field. And the way I think they're going to be able to do it is through the rush. Alabama has very talented running backs, and one of the biggest head scratchers we've had all season long is why they're not utilized to a higher degree. Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, and certainly Jahmyr Gibbs, all of which have got fantastic ability, but they haven't been utilized to a degree that I think a lot of fans thought they might be. I think that's something we're going to see change on Saturday. I think the key to Alabama is let that rushing attack ride out, and once Kansas State brings those safeties down in the box to try and bring more numbers to account for the rushing attack, that's when you start really opening it up with the passing attack. And as we talked about with Will Anderson on the defensive side, there is no understating the value of Bryce Young playing in this game. Bryce Young is a sensational quarterback, and his experience, his leadership in this game is going to be massive for this Alabama offense. I'm interested to see what the wide receivers are going to look like. There have been some guys that were actually playing on this team, hit the transfer portal, and according to Nick Saban, he gave them the option to stay and compete with the team and play in the bowl game to finish out their year as members of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and they chose not to. And according to Saban, he thinks that the energy has been better without some of those guys. And look, if they didn't want to come compete with their team, that's their prerogative, but it's good to hear that Saban is excited about the guys that are there. That's the good news, and I'm interested to see how this wide receiver room comes together. But the name I really want to see have a big game come Saturday is Cameron Latou. I think if Alabama can get the tight end worked in early, they can really start taking advantage of some mismatches, both with Jahmyr Gibbs, with Ja'Cory Brooks, with Prentice, with Bond, you name it. I think there's going to be paths for them to take advantage, but I think Cameron Latou is going to be a massive figure in this game. So at the end of this, who do I have coming out victorious? And surprise, surprise, I'm going to pick the Alabama Crimson Tide to win this game. And the reason is I just think they feel disrespected. And it's a very palpable feeling whenever you listen to both Nick Saban talk and some of the guys on this team talk. I think they understand that this is an opportunity to build going into next season off of what many around college football would call a disappointing year for Alabama, which is insane because if you gave this year to almost any other head coach in college football, they'd be getting a raise and the fan base would be over the moon. But for the Alabama Crimson Tide, they have established a different standard. It's going to be very interesting to see how they go and try and compete to maintain that standard. As far as Kansas State goes, let's get one thing clear. This is a very good football team. Nothing is going to be given to the Alabama Crimson Tide, and I think a lot of people are going to exit this game being much more impressed with Kansas State than they entered the game being. I've been very impressed with Kansas State all year. They're well coached, they're disciplined, they don't beat themselves, and if you're Alabama, you cannot be having to face Kansas State and the Alabama Crimson Tide. The discipline is something that must get cleaned up for Alabama in this game. Easy to say, but we've seen the problem all season long. Hopefully, with the time off, that's something they're able to correct, but I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know who you think comes out victorious. That's it. See ya.